what's some of the best marketing, like what's the best marketing piece that you guys have ever done? Like what was the most successful, whatever that means to you?
Really, the best answer I could possibly give is the long-term goodwill marketing that we've done, right? Like Prime Daily is
Give some
probably,
examples.
yeah, like Prime Daily, my daily episode, literally posting a 1 minute video on Instagram pretty much every single day. We're at episode 493.
All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to Industry Connected, episode number 11. Wow. So today we're going north of the border. We're going up Canada to London, Ontario, Canada. We're going to be talking about how to build a dominant real estate team, how to build a dominant brokerage and a brand with Justin Conoco. He's someone that I've been connected with on social media for a few years now. He's become a friend. His podcast, which is called Prime Real Estate, is amazing. And that podcast is actually part of the Industry Syndicate. Let me pull up my notes here. So Justin, he and his wife Shannon started Prime Real Estate Brokerage up in Canada. We'll get to the. I want to hear like why they decided to go out on their own. You know, they're going to tell the whole story because and they're business owners too, right? When you start your own brokerage, like you're a business owner, so there's so many lessons that we can learn from him. Real quick, if you're not familiar with the show, if this is your first time, my name is Dustin Brohm. I am a real estate agent with eXp Realty in Salt Lake City, Utah. I am the host of the Massive Agent podcast, and also this show. This show will be a podcast as soon as we're done recording live here, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm also the founder of the Massive Agent Society. You can check that out over at massiveagentsociety.com. It's our Facebook ad lead gen program, and co-founder of the Industry Syndicate. This show, Industry Connected, is produced by the Industry Syndicate, real estate's very first media network. Super stoked today. Stay tuned to the end because Justin will have this week's marketing quick tip for you. He's going to share his best material. So let's turn it over to Justin Conoco up in London, Ontario, Canada, which is outside of Toronto, and these guys they're crushing it up there. So Justin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Dustin. I love that we live in a global village where you can be where you are and I can be all the way up in Canada, and we can.
It's crazy.
I mean, our relationship has gotten to the point where I feel closer to you than some people that are even in my own city, and I think some of the things that you guys and the other people in the Industry Syndicate are privy to, you know, going into different types of marketplaces, equip us with a unique skill set that we're not stuck just looking at things the way that our market's looking at it. We're seeing other places and other ways to do business and then bringing it back to our home base, deploying it, and then going back to the well and saying, hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. And I think that's the beauty of what we're doing here.
100%. And I'm glad you said that because that's the goal of this show is to like get different perspectives from both sides of the industry, from real estate, from mortgage, and then now like we're getting a Canadian perspective. And we were talking before we started recording here about branching out, and you recommended an amazing book called Blue Ocean
Shift is the name of the book.
Blue Ocean Shift. Yeah. And it's about branching out and learning some different perspectives. Like some of the best marketing ideas I've ever had were inspired from outside the real estate industry because I was listening to other shows, following other people, or just seeing how they did things outside of our industry that I was like, oh shit, like that's good stuff. I'm glad to have you from up in Canada to share how you built such a dominant team. Tell us real quick, get us up to speed on who you are. How long have you been in real estate? Like what does your team look like? Who is Justin Conoco?
So right now I own a real estate brokerage with my wife, Shannon, who is the brains of the operation. I'm kind of the face. You see me online everywhere. See her, you don't see her. She's in the background, but she runs everything operationally from, the accounting, the legal side of things, staffing, really systems and processes, and the business. I mean, she would never tell you this, but she has her MBA from Ivy, which is a pretty prestigious school up here. So she's always been an A-type when it comes to business planning. My background, what I do now is I actually run the actual sales team. So there's 10 of us We have 2 staff. One would be in administration. We have a videographer on staff as well. And we actually just put out an ad for another administrative assistant. So I guess we're 13 people total. My thoughts are right now we're very happy with the size that we are. And we'll dig into that in a little bit more because your typical real estate brokerage just wants to grow and grow and grow. And that's not what we are. To give you a quick synopsis and get you up to speed of where we are, I was born and raised in Montreal, so big city kid. Too much of a big city for me. I got into too much trouble in Montreal, so I had to leave. My sister brought me down to London in the early 2000s, and back in those days, London was a really big small town. It had a population of, let's say, 360,000 people. Southwestern Ontario, right in between basically Detroit and Toronto. So like if you look at where my head is, the circle, Toronto's here, Detroit's here. My head's just too far for me to go to one of those cities to go buy a pair of shoes. So a fun fact about London is we're a test market. So like McDonald's, Wendy's, when they started the new store concepts, they're rolling out the McRib. Like we've seen all of the new products in London before the general public has, because you actually have a decent population base that's very dynamic, but in a captive market that's not going to drive to go get other products so they can test products here. Really kind of piqued my interest about the city back then because I thought it had that small town vibe where everybody knows everybody twice removed, but still had everything that a big city had and was growing. So I worked in the restaurant industry for about a decade. One of my mentors, phenomenal guy, basically let me run the restaurants as if they were my own. So I had my hand in multiple restaurants, did marketing and advertising for those businesses, and then met my beautiful wife, and we talked about getting into real estate. And I pushed back initially. I didn't want to do it because I had some misconceptions of the industry that some of them are true, some of them aren't. But I thought what everybody thought of a real estate agent that we deal with now, right? And then my wife, being smarter than I, said we can go down the path of buying a restaurant or being in that world, but it comes with its own unique challenges. And she thought with my personality that it would be a natural fit. So dove in head first, got into the business, and it was very different than I thought it was going to be.
Yep. Shit, that's how it was for me, man. Like, it looks very different from the outside once you get in and you have to wear all the different hats. I think that's the hardest thing for agents and loan officers is knowing that, hey, you're an entrepreneur now, that you're not just the real estate agent who has a specific job. If you work for a team and you really do have a set, like certain responsibilities, awesome. But if the vast majority of us are in it to do everything, like we trying to build our own business, so we have to wear all the hats, and it's crazy. Like you do not, strangely, that is not in the real estate licensing education. Very, very strange.
Education's a bit of a mess when it comes to real estate. And I think the group of people that we're associated with through the industry syndicate, and people that you and I both know, Dustin, really want to change that, right? Like the industry is what it is, but you have people that operate on a higher level and see what it could become and hold themselves to a higher standard. And that's what we wanted to do, right? Like when we got into the business, I remember I just talked about this at lunch with a friend of mine. He told me a story, so I'll reverse engineer this. And he said somebody he knew that he thought he was going to use as a real estate agent messaged him on Facebook one day. And he said this person he knew for a number of years, and he'd seen her at the gym a couple times and said hi to her, and she literally looked right through him, like didn't recognize him, didn't engage in an actual relationship, right? And then one day he gets a very candid copy and paste message on Facebook from her saying, hey, I'm in real estate now. This is what I'm doing if you're looking to buy or sell property. And he said it was very clearly copy and pasted. Like it wasn't personalized in any sense of the word. And he responded to her and he said, you know what? I was actually thinking of using you, but he's like, if this is how your interaction is going to be, you're not necessarily somebody that I want representing me because you don't necessarily care about me as a person. You're just putting a dollar value to our relationship. And he's like, I'm not trying to be mean. And he was very nice and kind of candid about it. But I think
at least he said something. That happens all the time to those of us with shitty marketing or, who put no thought into the random DMs. Like that's what people are thinking. They just don't say it to your face.
Yeah, I unfollow people and I actually unfriend people all the time. It's LinkedIn especially. I'm actually trying to protect my LinkedIn portal because of the fact that, there's such a big uptick in value in LinkedIn these days. And I spend too much time just accepting everybody. And like now I get one of those, I'm done. Like I think that's where the state of social media marketing is going. Is people are going to spend a lot more time curating their content than they've done in the past, because it was a garden hose, and now people see value. They're gonna put some more effort into going back and saying, you know what, maybe I'm going to unfollow those 2,000 people and just keep the 500 that actually matter to me, right? And long story short, I mean, that's what Shannon and I wanted. We had been trained to do that same Facebook tactic at the first place we worked at. You know, no fault to them, because cold calling and doing the scripting is something that's worked in the industry for a long time. Didn't speak to who we were, right? And I think that's where this conversation's going is, you know, I really kind of wanted to share with the audience that you don't have to do things the way they've always been done. And we really wanted to start a brokerage and a firm that was more of a consulting type of relationship rather than a sales or a transactional relationship. It like, you know, I wanted to obviously do the paperwork and do the deal for you, and I want your listing, and I want to do the buy and sell. But when you need a landscaper, I want to be the guy that you call to vet the landscaper. When you're, you know, kids, or you have a kid, I want to go over and see you and drop off a present and have an actual relationship. You want to go fly fishing? I'll go with you, right? Like, that's the type of relationship I want with my clients, rather than just pumping numbers through a spreadsheet.
Absolutely. And so you kind of answered it, but the question I was going to ask is, why did you guys decide to start a brokerage versus just your own team within a larger brokerage?
So this is an interesting conversation. It goes back to what I said. My wife is much smarter than me. So pushing me off a cliff into real estate was one. Second was, our business was growing 100% year on year when we were at our previous firm. And she was pregnant with her child, and, you know, A-type, wanted to be involved, and literally woke up one day and she said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And she showed me a business plan that she wrote for what we're doing now. And I was tentative. Same response I had previously when she mentioned real estate. And I said, why are we going to change something that's working, right? I'm like, we can just stay here. They can process our deals. They can continue to grow. And she's like, yeah, that works great on a short-term perspective. But she's like, you're just going to be wearing all the hats and doing everything, and there'll be a limit to the growth. Like, you only have so many hours in the day, and you'll get to the point where you're missing events for your daughter. You don't have any freedom to be creative and allow your clients to benefit from that creativity. She's like, you're just going to be running down the wheel. And the other part of it was, you know, we wanted to build a company. We didn't want to work at a brokerage, and they're great folks. I'm still friends with those brokers that own that company. I dropped off flowers when they opened their new office, and friends with tons of their agents. We just wanted to be able to just say, hey, we want to move the office, we'll move the office. We want to change something, we want to implement a new system. Cool, we can do that. We want to spend money on a marketing concept, brokerage wide, and position branding in a certain light. Let's do that. But I think it's grown from that initial, we just want to own the entire company, be able to do whatever we want, to now we have that company that's set up to serve our team, the people that are working with us, in a very different capacity than any other brokerage that I know of. And we can kind of dig into that a little bit more if you want.
Nice. But what was there ever a point when you were building prime real estate brokerage that you were like, oh, like, what did we do? Like, maybe we shouldn't have gone out on our own. Maybe we should have just, hooked up with a brokerage. Like, what were some of those challenges that anyone who does want to go down the path of opening their own shop, what do they need to know? Like, what's ahead of them?
So I would say initially I thought, there was going to be some pushback, right? I thought, we had a decent amount of listings in business, and they signed it over to us. So they took it over, and I thought, is this going to make me lose business in any sense of the word, that I'm not working with a national brand? And to be honest with you, our sales actually increased. So the response I got from the public was they wanted to work with a locally owned and operated company. They wanted to know the people that were behind it, and really, like, we're very transparent. So, that was a blessing in disguise that we didn't get any of that. The other side of things was I had Shannon, right? And I cannot stress that enough. I couldn't do it without her, from doing what I do in the field and running the brokerage. Like, when it comes to dealing with FinTrack and RICO, which is our governing body in real estate, she deals with all those conversations. So I don't even see them. So I would say, like, it seems great in theory sometimes, but I guess the question that you have to ask yourself if you're watching this and thinking about doing your own brokerage would be, what do you want to do? Do you want to run a company, or do you enjoy what you're doing sales wise and just do more of that and get rid of the paperwork, or alleviate, all the extra work that you have to do transactions? Because I have seen other people that have done firms or or jumped ship from a big brokerage and maybe they were 1 or 2 man operation, but they're both selling and they have a really hard time dealing with, keeping all the financial straight, keeping the commission trust counts organized, dealing with RICO, getting audited, because the second that happens, say RICO called me today and said, hey, we're going to do an audit. Great. We're going to go through all of your files. And I mean, you're talking from the last time they've been with us, almost probably 500 files. That's going to shut down my business for that period of time. So if you don't have any systems in place to deal with that, and you're the one that's actually just out there operationally, I would say stick with a big brand and work with somebody that can do a sub brokerage and then just process your transactions, but understand what you're trying to accomplish and don't just run to something else because what you currently are doing is not working or you think that's the answer, because the grass is always greener, but there's pros and cons, right?
For sure. And this is where, and you said it, like, you have to know what you want to do, because we all know people that have gone out, they've done their own brokerage only to find out that they now have to do a lot more stuff that they didn't want to do, where they could have and should have just like built a team and built a brand with a brokerage. Because like you said, nobody, like most of my clients don't even know who my brokerage is. No, they know Search Salt Lake. They know Dustin Brohm. That I just happen to be with EXP. Like they don't know that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and maybe they notice it, but that's not what matters to them. It's, so don't make it about that big brand, but you can utilize it to, to handle the legal and the payroll and all that crap. But if you do want to have full control and run a full on business, there's just no one solution for everybody. And so I love your perspective, because you guys decided, yes, we do want to do our own thing. We do want to run our own shop. And thank God you have someone like Shannon who can do a lot of that stuff, because I can't do that stuff.
Yeah, and going back to that conversation, Dustin, I think that's a good point, right? Like EXP was actually coming out. I think they were starting the conversation when the transition was happening, and I looked very closely at their business model. I mean, we've had offers from other brokerages to incorporate, like, buy our business and then just handle the transactions, and we could just focus on the sales. And there's a good part to that, but the biggest thing I try to stress to people is we're not really a real estate brokerage. Like, we're not in the business of hiring salespeople, right? And we're not really a real estate team either. Like, we are different. And I was really excited when you asked me to talk about this topic, because like it is about mindset and how you go about doing things, right? Like, we're a company that sells real estate. That's what we actually are. So when we talk about adding agents onto our team and the different components and, the video guy, and we're looking at the admin and Shannon, we all work at Prime, but I always tell my team, we're not at the top. We're not like top down. I'm not there as the boss and telling you what to do, right? Like, every single person we've hired has a unique personality. They have a unique brand. They're building their brands in the markets that they're in. They work with Prime because the ability to have recognition for being part of a certain caliber of people gives, say, our audience an understanding of who they're getting if somebody comes into a file that has a unique skill set that I don't have. But it's more the brand association that's helping them. But then on the back end, as a broker, as an owner of a company, I think the value proposition of hiring agents and the value propositions of working at a brokerage are changing very quickly. And I think agents are realizing that. A lot of agents are doing their own small firms because they want to just operate a team, maybe hiring a buyer agent or maybe a video guy and vlogging, because that's becoming very popular as well too. And it's going to be a requirement in the next 10 years. It's not going to be a maybe, or you want to be a YouTube celebrity or something like that. It's going to be something that people kind of have to have if they expect a certain amount of business. But I guess one topic I want to dig into.
I totally agree with you on that. You're not going to be known otherwise. No one's going to know who the hell you are.
Yeah, and I'm very careful about how I say this to people too, right? Like, when we go through and we do our episodes of Prime People, profiling people in the community and whatnot, I'm really trying to do it from a them perspective, not a me perspective. And I tell them, like, I don't want to be famous. I just happen to enjoy doing what I do. But long tail, that's how people get to work with the people they want to work with, rather than, just the random sign calls that come off the street. And we both know the difference in quality between those two businesses. So again, that's like consumer facing. That's what we created with Prime, was a business that said, hey, this is who we are. This is the type of people that we have on our team. This is the type of clients that we work with. And that's what we're drawing. When somebody calls me and they just say out of the gate, what's your commission? Usually I'll walk them through our entire process very quickly, but that's probably not our ideal client, because if all they're doing is comparing commission to commission, apples to apples, thinking every agent's going to sell their property for the same amount of money, there's nothing I can do to help them understand there's a big difference between the net number that they're going to get regardless of the commission that they're paying, right?
Yep. They're discount shoppers. Like, they're going to go to whoever has. There's so much more to it. Like you said, it's about what you net. It's not about the commission. Not really. Like, are you going to net more or not? But
I got a good one.
Right.
This came up last week.
Like that either, because they just don't get it.
There's a guy and I don't engage with the trolls anymore, right? Like, I'll have an open debate and I'll talk to people about stuff. But one guy posted, he said, would it be right? He said, is the fact that buyers buy properties for free the biggest misconception in real estate, or the biggest lie in real estate? That was his statement. Yeah. And, it was a good point, because I always tell people, assume that you're paying when you buy, because you're going to pay when you sell. So it's not free to buy. You got to make sure that you're getting a good purchase and make sure that you get some good equity in the actual purchase, or good value from your agent that you're working with, because you're going to pay it on the sale. So let's just pretend you're splitting it in half. You're just paying half up front. You just don't actually have to write a check. But his point was good, because the buyer's the one that actually writes the check. So technically he's paying the whole commission. It just flows through the seller side of things, right? Different way to think about it.
Right. Yeah.
But I responded to him and I said, actually, I think market price is the biggest fallacy, because he kept referencing that in his post, saying market price, every agent's going to get the same price. Every agent's going to get the same price. I'm like, let's walk through a few scenarios. I'm like, I had one last week that literally could have ended in a $20,000 legal battle, but because of a relationship that I happened to have in the community and some knowledge that I had of a recent transaction, I was able to stop that from happening. So I'm like, how do you quantify that? And I'm like, not only that, I can go through a case scenario of 6 other properties that I was told by my sellers, the other brokerages that came in at the low commission wanted to list it at X price, which was $50,000 less than I sold each of those properties for. And, the way I marketed them, the way I negotiated the multiple offers against each other, like, all of those are intangibles that, I can't turn around, and I'm not going to put an actual dollar figure on, but I can promise you, over my experience, I have gone into markets and areas and gone up against other listings that were lower commission brokerages, which are great, phenomenal business model for anybody out there that wants to go down that path. But for some reason, our property sold for more. So do I have the answer to that? Not necessarily, but you can't say every property is going to sell for the same price, regardless of on who's the other end of that transaction, right?
Exactly. And it's funny when I hear agents say that too. And in a second, I want to get back to the branding things. I have some questions, because I think you guys just went through a rebranding recently, and want to talk about that. Okay. But I hear agents talk, not too often, but like, market value is market value. Well, okay, then why do they even need us? Like, why can't Zillow just come in and buy everyone's home and open door? Like, what the hell do they need us for if the house is worth what it's worth, what it's worth, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of agents talk out of both sides of their mouth, and they don't realize what they're saying, so interesting. But I love it. Like, you were able to do certain things because of your knowledge and your expertise and relationships. Like, that's value. That's what differentiates you and your brokerage from others, is that stuff, which, I mean, you can get more deals under contract because you know the listing agent. I didn't even think about this, but we literally, we've been in multiple offers 3 times in the last year where our offer was accepted for less money, because they know we're associated with a very large influential HGTV guy that runs a group of people that invests in these types of properties, and they're qualified. So when our offer was on the table, I got a call at 10 o'clock at night, and we win the deal for 10 grand less than the next offer, because they have no confidence in the other offer actually getting to the finish line. So where's your market data then, when it would have sold for, let's say, 510 and I got it for 500, right? Exactly. Just curious, what is the median home price in London?
Right now, I mean, I'm always careful.
For a single family.
Single family, you're in the mid to 400s now. So it's escalated every year, 15% year on year. I'm very careful when I say median home price in the London area, because L-Star, so the London St. Thomas Board of Realtors, covers a huge territory that has a whole bunch of little towns in it, and then has our actual main city. But if you're looking to buy a single family detached home in London, I'd say your average price is probably normalized closer to I'd say 375 to 390 because you can get, homes in up and coming areas in the 2s to 3s right now. Those used to be 150 a couple years ago, but those don't exist anymore. And you can still get new products in the upper 4s, 5s, and 6s. And then our affordable luxury product starts in like 6 to 9. Our like ultra high end stuff, I would say hovers like 2 to 7 million. I would say like truthfully our high end stuff's like $1 million to $2 million. And then you'll
like
get
your
these
neighborhood.
Random outliers. Not my neighborhood. No, not at all. I'm just a poor real estate agent. I just happen to be in a boardroom right now.
Yes. Let's get back to the branding stuff with your brokerage, because you guys haven't always been prime real estate brokerage. Walk us through what you guys just did and why you did it.
So we started out, as I mentioned, my wife and I. It was Shannon Grogan and Justin Conoco. Those are our last names. So we were Grogan Conoco Real Estate Brokerage because we really wanted to be like a law firm, right? Or a CPA where, Bousher and Bousher, you just, the last names of a law firm would be. As we started growing, we started thinking, how are we going to serve our employees or our team members, right? Like if Dustin comes and works for me and he goes in for a meeting and he's like, yeah, I work at Grogan Conoco Real Estate Brokerage. They're going to be like, what does that mean? Who is that? Why are they not sitting in this chair? So that was the first thing. Second thing is Grogan Conoco Real Estate Brokerage is a mouthful to say. So for the admins and actual deal processing, branding perspective wasn't the easiest. And we just thought, we're getting to the point now where it's becoming bigger than us, right? Like I said, like we're a team on this level. We're not like this. It's not I work here and everybody's under me. It is truly this. So to have an even playing field, we want to create something that spoke to who we are. We were sitting down, looking at some boats come in a little beach town in Grand Bend. And I joked with my wife and I said, if you had a boat, what would you call it? And she said, Prime Real Estate. And we had gone through about a half a dozen other names. And literally like when you name your kid and you hear that name, it was like, oh, that's the one. Like instantaneously, I jumped on my phone, went to GoDaddy, and I'm like, I started buying URLs and like a whole bunch of them were available. I'm like, that's amazing. I emailed our lawyer and I'm like, hey, can we lock down this name for our firm? And sure enough, there was no other firm that had it, which I was very surprised at. And then
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. And I have a men's group that I go on. I do a Bible study every Tuesday. And one of my good friends, Harvey, leads it with me, said, literally, it's funny, the day we got the approval, like we sent it to Rico, and we're like, there's got to be another Prime Real Estate. We're never going to get this. I was with him at noon. And he was just talking about how business is being done nowadays. His family's done a lot of development in the city, and they have a really good name behind them. And he kind of understands, how we do our thing. And he's like, you know what, Justin? He's like, what you guys are doing, and he's like, how you're doing it, and everything else. He's like, you are prime real estate right now. Like, he's like, just keep, serving the people that work with you in the highest capacity you can, and you'll keep growing. And I literally, at the end of the meeting, pull up my phone and had the approval from Rico on my phone saying, you are now prime real estate. I showed Harvey, and it was like, everything kind of just lined up perfectly, right? So
that's awesome.
And it's easy to say, right? Like, who are you using? You're using Prime. Like, it was as easy as you can imagine.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so did it factor into your thought process, scalability, the ability to eventually maybe franchise or grow into different parts of Canada? That's the beauty when it's not like, London real estate company. You can go to Montreal, you can go to Vancouver, you can go wherever, right? Did the name did that factor into your decision for the rebrand?
1,000% it did. I see a lot of people that have like very local names and websites and taglines. Mm-hmm. It's great. You throw equity into that over 5 years. What are you going to do when you go into a new market, right? You have to rebrand and start from scratch. So from the beginning, we liked it because we're based out of London, but we actually cover Lake Huron to Lake Erie, Woodstock to Sarnia. So we go to a lot of markets that not necessarily many people from this market go to. We do go to Grand Bend, we go to Port Stanley, we go to Woodstock, we go to Elmer, we go to Lucan, like pretty much anywhere within that catchment area.
And I'm familiar with all of them.
Yes, intimately. For sure you are. Well, if you ever come up here, I'll take you. But
I'd never heard of London until I started following you on social. I'm like, wait, there's a London in Canada, and it's actually like a big city.
It was supposed to be the capital of Ontario. There's a river that goes through it, the River Thames, but it's like maybe a fraction of the size of the actual River Thames. I don't think you could get a kayak down it, let alone a boat. So didn't seem to matter. But yeah, going back to your question, 100% that was in the back of my mind because what we're building, we're able to deploy in a lot of different ways, right? Like we've built such a back end support system for our team. If an agent in Stratford called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, love what you guys are doing. I want to work with you," their initial pushback is, we're not based in Stratford, right? Our office isn't based in Stratford. But what I think people are starting to realize is the office doesn't really mean anything. Like half the agents that are in the industry don't even go to the office anyways. Like they're doing everything virtually. EXP with the guys you work with, I mean, it's 90% virtual. It's going to go more that way. So
Yeah,
other than
the CEO, like we don't even have a headquarter building. Like the CEO, Glenn Sanford, the founder, my understanding is he just has like his own personal office. Everything's cloud based.
And
like,
we thought about that. We actually thought about not doing offices at all. We're
sure.
We're in a bit of a different place because our team, like the way our territory is, it's good to have a central location, and we actually have plans for a couple little satellite offices, but more like co-working spaces and maker spaces that have other aspects to them rather than just our brokerage, just more community building and like saying, hey, we got a secret sauce that we know how to make. We'll pop it into your community. We need a place to work anyways, but hey, if you have a home-based business and you want to come work in a cool, inspiring space, like I let my clients use my boardroom. If they're like, hey, I have a meeting and they don't own an office downtown, but they have an out-of-town investor coming in, I'll be like, yeah, sure, use my office. Like nothing here, nothing belongs to anybody. It's funny how we can have title to properties and people own water rights and stuff like that. I mean, the earth belongs to everybody. So I think like having that mindset and dealing in business versus this is my piece of the pie, you can't come here and this is my market, like that's going away, right? And going back to Stratford, for example, right? So say I want to go into that market and there's an agent there that I have a relationship with that says, I want to work with Prime, but like this office has been here forever. My question to that agent would be, how many deals has that office actually given you? And then once you actually are running your business, how much support do you actually have from the office other than the administrative work? Like, are they answering their phone? Are they helping brand you in any way? Are they connecting you with Dustin Brohm and giving you an outlet in the States if you happen to be traveling that you can pop in his office, or a Housing Wire conference to jam on real estate? Are you developing relationships beyond your local area? Because really, if you look at it, a lot of times when you're working in an office in one area, you're kind of confined to how business is being done in that area. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, some of the best ideas we've had and a lot of the inspiration for our growth has come from guys like you and Jazz and Greenspan and like Fraser and like Chelsea. I can go on. And I mean, we met on Snapchat like 4 years ago, right?
It's wild. You mentioned something about your office space, like you can just let a client use the boardroom or whatever. Excuse me. So, do you know Jamie Anderson in Redding, California?
I don't know.
So she's in the Snappack real estate group. She started a brokerage called Avenue, really cool branding and everything, but it's a really cool space in downtown Redding, California that she does events at, and she rents it out for events. So like there's ways, if you have office space that's cool and desirable, like you could subsidize the cost of it by letting people do events there. Like, and that's what she's doing in it, and it's pretty cool. Like I think she could actually like make some money off of it every month. But everyone who comes in, then they see your branding. They're like, oh, this is Prime, this is Avenue. So there's ways to do it, but if you just have a boring old office in a shit location that isn't desirable even for your agents, that's not so good. That's not so good.
No, and I think like people got to think beyond what an office is, right? Like in our market, a 2,000 square foot office is kind of a small office. You go to downtown Toronto, like where Jazz is located, 900 square feet, you can fit 100 agents in, right? Like, and multi-purpose your space. So like our boardroom is going to be our studio at the same time, right? So like we're putting in lighting and audio and equipment to make it so that we can shoot podcasts there. We can do guests, or if we want to sit down and do seminars and stuff like that, like we can shoot a whole pile of different videos there. I've also thought about it. I'm like, Twitch is something that I've always thought would be an interesting way to open it up to a whole new audience, because it's got a massive amount of attention. I'm like, I just talked to my AV guy. I'm like, can you turn it into a Twitch studio too? So if, Chad wants to come by and play Madden and talk about investment properties, we can live stream it at the same time. Like, I don't know exactly what it's going to be at the end of the day, but not being confined to the fact that it's prime real estate and it's everything prime. Like if Nathan has a big meeting with a huge client, I want him to know that he can sit down in the executive office and close that client in an inspiring space, and that we're just sharing it. We're just using it for all kinds of different purposes, right?
For sure, for sure. Let's talk marketing for a second, and then we'll bring it to a close. We'll land the plane, as Jake Feeling likes to say. Um, what's some of the best marketing? Like, what's the best marketing piece that you guys have ever done? Like, what was the most successful? Whatever that means to you.
So I mean, really, the best answer I could possibly give is the long-term goodwill marketing that we've done, right? Like Prime Daily is
Give some
probably
examples.
Yeah, like Prime Daily, my daily episode, literally posting a 1-minute video on Instagram pretty much every single day. We're at episode 493.
Yeah, man. Congratulations on that, by the way. Like I've been doing the flash briefing, and I'm at episode 360 today, and that's a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, and you're getting there, right? Like I structure it in a way that, you know, I can get freedom from the fact that I don't necessarily have to do it every day. I can batch it, and I've got it all in the queue so I can roll it out. But I think that has really opened up my audience's eyes to who I am, how I do business, that I don't necessarily want everything from them, that I am, you know, again, I'm not trying to be cocky by any sense of the word, but I'm obsessed with real estate, and I consider myself to be one of the best at my craft. So how am I going to get that across to my audience? If I send a mailer that just says, hey, I'm Justin, I'm the best real estate agent on the planet, like maybe that's my mindset. But unless I can actually tell you things or show you tangible proof in conversations or give you something of value that maybe saves you in a transaction you're doing with somebody else, you know, you'll know my intent after 493 episodes when I don't ask you for anything. And I think like the biggest return I had from that, it wasn't even a direct sales result, right? Like we were doing a build for Habitat for Humanity, and we had to raise money, and our goal was $2,500. And I had a builder message me, and that builder said, hey, I want to meet you for coffee initially. And I thought it was a real estate conversation. And he goes, you know, you've never asked for anything. He's like, I watch all your videos. He's like, I just want to give you the $2,500. And I was like, man, like you don't have to do that. We're gonna make it. And he's like, no. He's like, I think he said he was doing a transaction in another market, and one of my videos helped him save a bunch of money from something that was about to happen. So he's like, I don't care. He's like, I've made it back tenfold. So he's like, this is just my gift to you. He's like, go try and match that and make $5,000 instead of $2,500, which we did. But to me, that was such a proof of, you know, when I wasn't getting the engagement that I wanted on my videos, and like, you know, it's such a double-edged sword, because I don't care about the likes. I don't care about the views. Like, you know, it matters to all of us. We want to see that what we're putting out there gives value. And yes, the way that Instagram and Facebook is designed is to give you that dopamine hit and that feedback. So like you get that guttural reaction, but I've always told myself, you're in it for the long run. If I could turn off the likes and the views, I would today. But to me, that was like, oh, somebody's watching that I didn't even know was watching. I helped them. They're now helping somebody that was in a underprivileged position get into a home. So not even a direct correlation to me, but I think that's where the world's going when it comes to marketing, right?
Yeah, and we do get so focused on the views, the likes, the followers, all this stuff. And you know, to a certain extent, like you need to, so you know if you're moving in the right direction, you know if people are watching and consuming and you're growing your audience, like you should be doing that. But ultimately, like the number shouldn't matter that much, because like if you have 147 views on a video and you're pissed about it, you're like, oh, no one's watching. Well, imagine 147 people sitting in a room and you were on stage in front of them and they were all listening to you. Is that a big deal? That's a huge deal.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's what it is.
I can tell people like the amount of business that we've gotten, like from Instagram alone. I've gotten 7 deals in the last 3 months. And it was literally just over time. It was people that had advice and then came back and said, hey, I'm ready to do something. And I was like, yeah, I didn't even know you watched the show, right? Because you don't know who's actually watching. And I think you'd be very surprised at how many people in your actual local market and people that are in your sphere are paying attention. Just they're very worried about privacy. So they're not engaging a lot of the times. And that's okay. Like, it'd be nice to get it from every single person. But at the end of the day, if you get the relationship, or like I called a friend of mine who's a doctor in Montreal yesterday. I hadn't talked to him in probably 6 or 7 months just to tell him I loved him. I'm like, dude, it's been a while. I was listening to a podcast and we were talking about calling and connecting with your friends. I'm like, I can call Richie. And he called me and he's like, yeah, he's like, I just showed one of your videos to my girl. And he knew me when I wasn't as good at my job as I am now, right? And I'm like, imagine that. And I'm like, and like, this dude's in the hospital working as a doctor. Like, it's just inspiring to see people get passionate about things and just put one foot in front of the other. So I think to wrap that up, as far as a marketing piece or a piece of advice, is just do it. Be genuine. Do it with intent and do it longer than you even think you need to do it for, with no expectation of return.
I love it. So I was going to ask you specifically for this week's marketing quick tip, but you just gave it, and I don't want to distract from that. That's a big deal. Like so I'll be a little vulnerable right now. So this show, Industry Connected, we're 11 episodes in. When I launched the Massive Agent podcast, because I have an audience that's pretty big, you know, and I've had some success and met a lot of people. I'm like, when I launch this new show, Industry Connected is just going to take off because I already have an audience. Even though it's a different show, I was like, it's just going to take off, right? Well, it didn't. And it reminded me that it's following the exact same path as when I launched the Massive Agent podcast. It starts slow, and then all of a sudden you're going to get a little pop, and then that's literally the process. Like you are on the road. If you're incrementally going up, and then you get a little boost, and then it maybe goes back down, like you just have to keep going, and it keeps growing. But keep going, it keeps growing.
And there's risk involved with it, right? Like I'll use my property videos as a good example of that. Like we started doing videos for all of our properties in 2012, and people thought it was insane. Other agents would be like, man, I can't believe you're spending, you know, at that time, $500 a property video. I'm like, you're getting big checks. You're telling me you can't spend some money on marketing. But not only that, I said, if you do it consistently over time, it'll make a huge difference. And I watched agent after agent try and do a video, give up after 3. Give up after 4. And there's a couple agents in my market that have consistently done it. And to me, I mean, it's apples and pineapples, what we do and what they do, but at least they're doing it consistently over time. And, you know, I'm sure they're getting business from it. I tell my team the same thing. Like you can't, especially in this business, the same thing that used to work with direct mailers, you know, mail out one direct mailer. It's not going to work. Mail out a direct mailer every single month for 12 months for 3 years. And I promise you it's going to work. But you got to be consistent, and you have to do it over a long period of time.
Yes, and it's literally the magic. Like no matter what you're doing, if you do it long enough and consistently enough, it will grow. You will see results because, look, if it was so easy that you just put out 4 videos and you get 10 closings from it, everyone would do that, right? But the reason that it's so well, first off, it doesn't work that way because there's so much content, but you get more valuable people. You attract more valuable or better fit clients when you filter out those that maybe don't align with you in whatever way. And then you slowly over time, you find and attract the people who are a good fit for you, and business becomes fun. You build better, longer lasting relationships. It's just powerful stuff. But if you don't do it, or you only do it for a month or a year, you'll never know how crazy it could have gotten for you. So congrats to you for what, 470 episodes of your daily show?
Getting there, almost at 500. We're 494 tonight. Or yeah,
494.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Congrats, man. I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you letting us see behind the curtain a little bit of Prime Real Estate Brokerage and how you guys have built it. And how many did you say you have on your team? Like 18 or something?
We're 12. We're hiring another admin, so we'll be at 13. Okay. I think, like I said, I think we're pretty comfortable. I think 15 was the number that we wanted to hit. We're not a sales office, right? Amazing. So I'm not in the business of hiring agents. I'm in the business of working with people that are like us.
100%. That's incredible. I mean, that's a good, successful business that, thank you for the opportunity to learn from you and see how you've done it, why you've done it, because I think that'll help anyone listening. It's so important to begin with the end in mind. If you want to reach a certain goal, you have to know what's coming ahead. And so that's why these interviews are so valuable. So Justin, thank you, my man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you as well, Dustin. And everybody follow Dustin's podcast. It's absolutely killer. Follow the rest of the Industry Syndicate. Reach out to me directly. If you have any questions, you can DM me at Prime Real Estate Can on Instagram. Enjoy your day, Dustin.
Thanks, buddy. And yes, definitely go follow Justin and Prime Real Estate. I apologize. I was going to say, how can people follow you? But I'm glad you jumped in and did that for me. Thanks, buddy.
All
Enjoy
good,
your weekend.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Take care, buddy.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, guys, thank you so much. This has been episode number 11 of Industry Connected. So as soon as we wrap the recording on this, will be available as a podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can go listen to all of our past episodes with Casey Crawford, Jake Failing, Chase Majerus, Kevin Peranio, everybody. There's some amazing shows. Go back and catch up on those. So, and if you have received any value from today's show or from a previous show, please, because it's free, like we don't ask for anything in return, just help us by leaving a review or a rating on iTunes. It goes a long way in the way it works with podcasting is iTunes or Apple Podcasts is kind of like Google for websites. So by getting reviews and ratings, it's an indication to Apple that, hey, this podcast is in demand, and subscribes as well. Subscribing helps you as a listener because it makes it easier, and you get a notification whenever there's a new episode. But help us out. Go check out industrysyndicate.com as well, and check out Justin's show and everyone else's that are part of our media network. And enjoy the weekend. Go sell some homes. Go close some loans. Take care.